Yes, we will. And it's just 35 days since Greece rocked up to Wembley and left with a well-deserved 2-1 win in what was an experimental lineup from Lee Carsley. I think it's fair to say he's learned from that. But if England are looking to get revenge for that defeat, they'll have to do it without not one, not two, not three, but 9 withdrawals from the original squad. I can't remember the last time there's been so many players having to withdraw. But those that have withdrawn then from this squad, goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale, then you've got the defender Trent Alexander-Arnold, Levi Colwill as well. Declan Rice has also had to return to his club alongside his Arsenal teammate Bukayo Saka. There's no Cole Palmer, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, and then yesterday another defender pulled out in Jared Branthwaite. One player who will be out in Greece tonight, though, is the England captain Harry Kane, and he clearly isn't happy with the amount of players choosing to stay at home.
Every camp, people were excited to come. Every camp, people wanted to play for England. And yeah, that's the most important thing. I think England comes before anything. England comes before club. England is the most important, thing you play as a professional footballer. So, and Gareth was, hot on that, and he weren't afraid to make decisions if, that started to drift from certain players. It's a shame this week. Obviously, it's a tough period of the season, and maybe there's been taken advantage of that a little bit. I don't really like it, if I'm totally honest. I think, like I just said there, I think England comes before any club situation.
Interesting comments really there from Harry Kane. I'm not quite sure who he may well be maybe having a dig at, but he was speaking to ITV there, having that conversation. And it has led to the debate of club over country. He says it's club before anything else. There will be some that very much agrees with that. I'm sure our very own Stuart Pearce would perhaps say that as well, and we'll be speaking to him a little bit later on. What about you? Where would you have stood on it? You were called up into a number of squads.
It'd be club for me. Mm-hmm. It's a huge honour to play for your country, of course it is, but first of all, your club's paying your wages. If you weren't playing well for your club, you wouldn't be getting into England squads anyway. And when you're looking at the players that are pulling out, that pull out of squads, it's normally the players that are fighting at the top of the table. Big games. You come back from this international break now, no international break till March, and the schedule is relentless. Games, especially in December. And you've got little knocks, looking at the games, you're not even in the top level of the Nations League, the top group. So the managers are probably getting into players' ears and saying, like, why don't you stay? Let's get you wrapped up. You can have a nice 3-4 days off. We get you treatment. So I can see why players do decide, to pull out.
When you hear him saying that some players maybe are taking advantage of this current situation, does that not spark an internal issue there? If Harry Kane is speaking so openly about club versus country, and he would pick the country before the club, but he doesn't like the fact that it seems as though some have pulled out maybe a little too easily, perhaps.
Oh, of course, and 100%. If Thomas Tuchel was manager for this set of games, half of these players will probably be there. Yeah, and not maybe pull out because
they'd want to impress.
Yeah, you want to impress the manager. Lee Carsley, for me, done a great job with his coaching staff. But, after these 2 games, new managers coming in, and you've got, 4 or 5 months before the next squad is in March. You've got time to impress. So I understand Harry Kane saying it. He was trying not to throw anyone under the bus, wasn't he, Harry Kane, the way he was saying it. But he doesn't miss a game for England. Even when he's maybe got a knock, he's there. He's England captain. He wants to get record amount of caps. So I do get it, like to Carl Walker as well. I think he's 6 or 7 off 100 caps. He's there. He's had injury problems as well. But I just feel when you're fighting for top honours, like some of these players are, and you keep getting knocks and you're playing so much football, the likes of Saka and the likes of Rice, understand why you'll put your club first. And if you ask the majority of the fan base out there, if it was their player, they'd be like, yep, I'd rather him not go away with his country, put your club first.
With some of those withdrawals, though, that we've mentioned, they're not guaranteed to start. Harry Kane is guaranteed to start, we know that, and that's sometimes being the bigger issue. When Gareth Southgate was in charge, was Harry Kane fit, for example, at the Euros? Lots of issues like that. It's slightly different when you are the captain because you're going to play, so you're always going to turn up, essentially. Slightly different from some of those that have pulled out that aren't guaranteed to be first 11, but would still be amongst the squad and certainly maybe on the bench as well. So listen, it's an interesting debate about the club versus country, and something we'll get to a little bit later on. But we talked about the incoming boss, Thomas Tuchel. Doesn't start until the 1st of January. He's reportedly decided against travelling to Greece as well. So that means Lee Carsley takes charge of these final 2 games. Here's what he had to say on Kane's club against country comments.
I think it's different for everyone. I think it's when you're in this environment now, this is the most important thing. But when you obviously go back to your club, then that's the most important. And I think generally, if you're playing well at your club, that marries up to getting selected for your country. So, they're both equally as important.
I mean, you mentioned it already, that if this was Thomas Tuchel's first England camp, you wouldn't be seeing as many withdrawals as we're seeing right now. But the problem you're having with Gareth Southgate's obviously exit, Lee Carsley's interim charge, that you are opening yourself up to these withdrawals. Some, let's be honest, legitimate. Obviously have absolutely every reason to not be a part of this England squad. But you can also look at it and think, would this have happened under Southgate? And will this happen under Tuchel? Unlikely, probably. Like you say, a lot of them would want to be a part of it. It's just it kind of, you worry about, does this ruin what Gareth Southgate had brought to the England setup about players wanting to be a part of it?
I think it will change when a new manager comes in, but
you think,
it's hard for Lee Carsley as well, isn't it? Because he's looking at it and players pulling out, and it's disappointing. But I just don't understand that the FA haven't brought Thomas Tuchel in already, because it's not like we've got 3 years to the World Cup. No. When he takes charge in March, you're talking just over a year before the World Cup starts. How many times is he going to have with the players? You'd want to get in straight away. Or are they being loyal to what they've agreed with Lee Carsley? Maybe they've said to him, listen, you're going to have this amount of camps with the players. They don't want to go against what they've agreed with him. Maybe that's the only way I think, because I'm sure Thomas Tuchel will be ready to come in. It's not like it's the most strenuous job.
I wonder if there's a gardening leave situation, and I'm only assuming this.
Maybe.
And that's why he can't start until January. But then you sort of think, well, why did the FA name him when they did? Why not wait until these Nation League games are over and then make the announcement?
Well, tell him behind closed doors, it's yours. Yeah. Agreed, but you don't.
Absolutely. It's all signed and sealed, but we don't know about it. A bit like when Jurgen Klopp, the bombshell, when he decided he was leaving. Within Liverpool, they would have known that for a while, but they prepared themselves for that statement, and then.
But what I would say as well, though, is that some of these players have got legitimate reasons to not be in the squad. And there's a message there of someone's message there saying if Kane is that bothered about England, he should have turned up at the Euros. I agree with that, though, because in the Euros he was injured. So you don't want to play injured because you're being selfish and you want the number of caps. You want to play in these big competitions, because Kane wasn't fit and he was still playing. I guarantee you, if Thomas Tuchel was manager in the Euros, Kane would have been dropped because he wasn't fit. Yeah. It was leading to injured every game, and that cost us in the end. So I'd rather players not turn up to international duty that have got injuries than play just to get caps.
And look, there are a lot of those players that have withdrawn that didn't finish their last game. So that's what we talk about. There are legitimate reasons as to why players have withdrawn. And also you could obviously question, should they have been called up in the first place when you know they're injured? But then Lee Carsley has that right to call them up, to put them through the physio paces. Some of them, though, he would have called up before the weekend games when they did get injured. The likes of Trent. So the Jack Grealish one is maybe the one that stands out because he'd only trained once. Yes,
and Pep was quite angry.
Happy. Yeah. But one player we know who was never going to be involved tonight, of course, is the Arsenal defender Ben White. The right back hasn't been with a Three Lions camp since the 2022 World Cup, when he left the competition for personal reasons. Now, interesting development on him. Here's what talkSPORT's voice of live football, Adrian Durham, revealed last night.
Little bit of information we'll give you on the show tonight, and that is, I've heard from a very good source that Arsenal's Ben White will be making himself available for selection in March when England play again for the first time under Thomas Tuchel.
Wow. Now that's interesting. I don't know if many people expected a U-turn, certainly, but we would love to know your opinions on the fact that Ben White, according to our very own Adrian Durham, has said that once Thomas Tuchel's in charge, he's available.
Give him a chance.
03717 223344. We always want you involved in the show. Of course we do. And loads of you have been texting in this morning already. Thank you very much for that. Do you agree with what Harry Kane has had to say about players should always choose country over club? And would you welcome Ben White back with open arms? Or are you someone that thinks once you turn down the national team, the door is shut. 03717 223344. That's the number to call us on this morning. You can also text us to 81089. Coming up, the David Coote saga continues, and we'll bring you all the reaction next.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.